Good morning. We're just going to wait for folks to load in, and I will get us started. Welcome to the weekend conversation series. I see quite a few folks joining in. Welcome. Good to see you. My name is Perry Shaw. Welcome to Woodturners Worldwide Weekend Conversations. Hey, why don't you go ahead and write in the chat where you're from and what the weather's like where you're at. I'd be interested to see that. Again, welcome. We are waiting for John Jordan to sign in, and we will get going in just a few minutes. Welcome, everybody. I see we have Iran in the house. We've got, I see folks from Seattle, folks from really all across the U.S. Good to have you here. We're just waiting for John Jordan to join in. He should be coming in just a few minutes. We have Miller Turnery Co., another cold, rainy spring day in Maine. Yes, indeed. Texas, Mexico. Very good. Sunny and beautiful in Seattle. Absolutely, Elizabeth. Michigan and sunny. Absolutely, we like that. Oklahoma, chilly this morning. Good morning from New York there. We're just waiting for John Jordan to come in. He should be coming in here shortly. I'm going to see if I can pull him up.
I'm here.
John Jordan, good to see you, sir.
Well, I was waiting for a notification.
Here we are. Hey, can you hear me
Anyway,
okay?
I can.
Awesome. Hey, I'm going to go ahead and set the stage, and then we will get this conversation going.
All right.
We have some folks loading in here. I'd like to welcome everybody. My name is Perry Shaw. We'd like to welcome you to Woodturners Worldwide Weekend Conversations. The purpose and goal of this conversation series is to bring the lives and the stories of makers into your home. So you can get to know the people behind the beautiful work that is posted here on Instagram and out into the world. So today we have the pleasure of interviewing John Jordan. Heck of a guy. He's a wood turner and a tool maker. John, I'm going to say thank you for agreeing to join me in this conversation today. Ask you how you're doing. How's everything going this morning?
Things are okay. I probably got up a little earlier than I usually do. I'm a layabout.
Is that right?
Yeah, I don't get started as early as I once did.
Well, that's all right. You know what? There's a lot to be said to getting a slower start to the day. Can you introduce yourself to the audience? Tell them a little bit about who you are, and then I'm going to take us into the conversation.
Sure, I can. I'm from here, and I live in Cane Ridge, Tennessee, in an old 215-year-old farmhouse that's been in my wife's family for, I think our kids are like 9 generations or something. So it's pretty cool. But I grew up in Nashville, and so I'm a lifelong Nashvillian. Well, that's not true. I lived in Southern California as a young man for a few years. That was pretty cool, and lived in a couple of places. But we've been here for 42 years, and so yeah.
Home is home.
You want me to tell them how I started turning and stuff?
Yeah, you know what? I'll take us into that here in a minute. But so can you tell us a little bit about your early years before wood turning? What was life like for John Jordan? It sounds like your roots are deep in Tennessee. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, as I said, I grew up in Tennessee. I don't have any remarkable stories through school and all that. I had a relatively normal childhood. I was enjoyed motorcycle riding. My dad was a motorcycle guy, and so I always had a motorcycle to ride when I was in school, and that's how I got to school for a lot of high school and stuff, you know. So that's kind of carried through my whole life. But I ended up in California. I went to school in California after I got out of high school, and I was in the computer business for about 16 or 17 years, working with bank equipment, ATMs, and that sort of thing. The very first ATM companies.
Is that right?
A long way from wood turning, but I always made stuff as a kid. I grew up, we didn't have much money, and like a lot of kids, we made things. We made go-kart, or what we call go-karts, boards with wagon wheels that you could ride down the hills, and things like that. So we always made things and worked. So I've always been a maker, and I started making furniture after Vicki and I got married, and thinking I would do that one day, and it was after I was vested in the company I worked for, and it was a little hard to screw up the courage to actually quit. And then one day they started rearranging the company, and so they let me go with several months' pay. And I had applied to my first craft show with wood turning, and I hadn't been turning that long, and so anyway, that was that. It went okay, and so when Vicki was pregnant, no, we just had our first child, so that's all they've ever known, and we managed to raise kids and put them through college, wood turning, every years, but.
Isn't it amazing how you mentioned that you were considering, I'm about to ask you about what got you into wood turning here in a second, but I have to remark on what you just said. You said you were thinking about moving away from your company, and then your company helped you by really giving you a launching pad by making the organization change, giving you a couple months pay. But what did get you into wood turning? What was it that intrigued you? How did you get started?
Well, I said I had been making a little bit of furniture, and I got interested. I don't know, going to a craft show or something, and I started making kind of precious little boxes and things like that. And I make furniture, and I often joke that everything I made cost $1,200. I made desks and magazine racks and tables and chairs, but so I'd gotten into woodworking, and I knew what was happening in turning. Of course, contemporary or kind of the turning we know now was really just getting started. There weren't that many people turning, and there was a show at Airmont called Vision and Concept, and that was kind of where indirectly, well, pretty directly, I guess, started. AAW was started around that conference at Airmont, and while I was not part of that, I really liked what they were doing, and so I'd had a lathe for several years to make a knob or something for furniture, but I wasn't really a turner, and although I had turned in middle school, junior high as we called it,
right.
And I made the rolling pins and stuff like that. But anyway, so I started turning, and the only person I ever saw was Liam O'Neill. Helga Winter, which is out your way in Port Townsend, is the one that really got me started here. She lived in Nashville then, and we became friends. I really liked what she did, and got started turning. And it was just good. It was a good time for me. A lot of fortunate things happened. I was good at it. It was something that made sense to me. So I feel blessed that way, that it is something that I had a sort of a natural ability for. And so, one thing led to another. And like I said, my company laid me off, and I was in a craft show, and we made a little bit of money there. And so I did shows for a number of years, and that's how we paid the bill.
Good. It's wonderful when your passions and your discoveries line up with your skill set. Clearly, you were good at what you did, and then you honed your craft a bit. Do you recall your first lathe? What was your first lathe?
Oh yeah, I had uh, the first one was a Delta Homecraft. I'm trying to adjust
Uh-huh.
the camera a little bit here. It's propped up against one of my pieces.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, it was a little 11-inch Delta Homecraft or
Uh-huh.
something. I didn't have it. That's what I'd had in my shop for furniture stuff. And
Uh-huh.
when I got started turning, I didn't use it but a little bit, and bought a conover lathe,
Oh, you
which
did?
which I quite like. Yeah, I love the conover lathe, and in fact, the box of the conover lathe came in is sitting right here at my right hand. It's my carpet.
Is that right?
So almost 40 years later, I've got the crate. I actually use that as my carving bench, and when I travel, if I'm driving, I throw all my tools in that wooden crate and haul it around with me, and I've got my carving bench and my tools right there in that box. So I got rid of the conover, but still have the box. So
Usually it goes the opposite way, John.
Yeah, I used that for a long time, and then I had I made a lot of good work with a conover lathe, and then I had a bowl lathe that a friend had built, and I used the conover to rough shape the pieces, and I always start between centers. No matter what I make, I start between centers. And then I transfer it to, back then, a faceplate.
Yeah.
Of course, these days, a chuck, more likely.
Yeah.
And so I would use that bowl lathe. It was a really nice, substantial bowl lathe. But, of course, it didn't have a tailstock. And I did the hollowing on the bowl lathe because I could stand in front of it. But I also had the conover made where I could slide the headstock. So it was the first sliding headstock lathe that we had, and I would slide the headstock down so I could stand at the end of it to turn. And then when I did some videos in around 1991, I think, and so Craft Supply gave me a Woodfast lathe to do those videos. It's kind of a swap there for my, promoting the Woodfast lathe. I sold a ton of those things for Craft Supply.
Did you?
Dandy lathes, the short bed Woodfast lathe was a jewel back then, because people considered the general lathe kind of the state of the art back then, and I really hated those things. So if anybody's got one, I apologize, but they just weren't that great. And the Woodfast to me was, this thing was made for bowl turning and vessel turning. It was sweet, simple.
John, let me ask this. So typically when folks get into wood turning, they try a bunch of different things, and then they identify the area that they really want to specialize in. And clearly you can do everything, but you honed in on hollow forms and vessels and those types of things.
Yeah.
What is it about vessels that really drew your passion and has maintained it all these years?
Well, I don't know. And I'll probably say this to a lot of your questions today. I don't know. I don't have great answers for a lot of this stuff, and I tend to not make up a lot of sort of flowery things, but I like the idea of hollow turning. I said there weren't but a couple of people doing it. Of course, David Ellsworth and Dan Kavitka, again out from Oregon, there was active back then, and Bill Hunter, and that's really about it. And I turned a few bowls, and I guess I should say, after I turned a few bowls, and people, what little bit I knew, they said, well, you have to rough turn these and return them, or this or that or the other. And my fourth or fifth bowl in, I turned I had a piece of green ash on the lathe, and I don't know why I can't just turn this. It looks like a bowl already.
That's right.
And so I just sanded up that little ash bowl, and I've been a greenwood turner ever since. It's all I do. But I got, I was interested in what David did. I liked the look of that enclosed thing, and probably like a lot of wood turners, just probably was attracted to that. Well, how does he do that kind of thing? You know, which I got over pretty quick, but that was probably the initial attraction. Well, this is difficult. I can do this.
That's right.
He does it, so I can do it. You know,
The challenge of it.
Yeah, and you know, sort of the wood turner part of me, and so maybe those technical parts, and you know, I make a big deal when I teach classes and stuff to try not to be such a wood turner all the time, you know, and look at it just from that wood turner's point of view, you know.
Sure.
But you know, that's no doubt what got me interested in that. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But
yeah.
There's a mystery. What's in there? It's enclosed. It's this, it's that. So I like that, and it's a really nice. I guess probably the best answer is it's a good platform for my carving and texturing, which I've also always done right from the beginning. You know.
So you've always carved on your hollow forms and vessels right from
right from the beginning. I could go grab a couple out of the cabinet and show you, or you know, probably in the first 20 I made, and they're carved and textured. And you know, I started out with little bits around the lip, or the, you know, make a carved collar or something like that. And, yeah. But
that's neat. What I heard you say essentially is you were intrigued by the challenge of it. Aesthetically, it was something that kind of pleased you, and it made you want to lean in a little bit, and then you incorporated carving right from the start because that made sense to you. Is that accurate?
That's fair enough. Yep.
Yeah. I'm going to kind of pull us back a little bit from, you know, actually talking about wood turning and more about your philosophy as a wood turner. When you approach wood turning, do you have a particular philosophy that you follow or are aligned with?
Well, I'm not sure I would call it a philosophy, Perry, but I'm a pretty simple. I'm a simple guy. Everything I do is, you know, a lot of people would say I'm a simple-minded guy, but I'm pretty basic, and in my turning, in my approach to work is pretty simple and basic. Like I said, I work with green wood. I have no interest in old dried up, cracked up stuff like that. I want nice, clean, fresh wood from a big log or something. And my tools are the same way. I only use you know, I have one bowl gouge, and that's probably stretching it. I obviously have 2-3 other gouges, but I use one bowl gouge. That's all I ever turn with. So I have one gouge. I have one little detail or spindle gouge, and a shear scraper, and that's it. So I use 3 tools for everything, and then of course my hollow turning tools. But I only use at the most 3 of those, unless I do something special, some kind of large piece or something. Right. Which I do have some other tools for, but yeah, I'm a minimalist, no doubt. Like I said, in my material, in my tools, and in my method, I'm a minimalist. Everything is as simple and pared down as I can make it. And you know, sometimes I tell people, they'll say, well, you know, what you need is this, or have you got one of the, or let me show you this new thing. And I tell them I'm not particularly interested in that. If you want to get my interest, tell me, you know, how I can do away with something.
Efficiency really is what I think I can
do. If I can do it with something less,
right?
Yeah, you probably get my attention. Yeah, but I don't need another thing. You know.
Yeah, that resonates with me, and I'm sure it resonates with many people.
That conflicts a little bit with my tool making and tool selling. You know.
I was about to ask you about that. I'm going to touch on that in just a few minutes. Let me ask you this. Do you consider yourself a wood turner?
I should say I'm not a lesbian. I can't help. I try not to read the questions here, but
Yeah, John, don't worry about
Sorry.
the hecklers. They're going to be here anyway, so just look past that. Let me ask you this, John. Um, do you consider yourself an artist, a wood turner, a craftsman? Do you have a certain way of describing yourself?
I personally typically don't say artist, but you know, of course, that's the way we're commonly referred to. You know, everything I'm part of, you know, shows and galleries and museums and stuff. You know, I'm typically called an artist, and I'm fine with that. Again, I don't get real bogged down in the so-called conflict of art and craft and all, you know, all that. I'm not terribly interested. I guess I'm an artist because I've got work in, you know, 35 art museums.
Right.
So does that make me an artist? You know, but they also have simple little cups, you know, ceramic cups from, you know, here, and they got, you know, so I don't know. I don't worry about it much.
John, do you remember the first time you sold something to a museum, or the first time a piece was acquired by a museum? What was that feeling like in that moment?
I you know, I honestly have no idea what. No, I don't. But I do remember. I do remember some of the acquisitions. In fact, I posted a piece. My very last post on Instagram was a piece that is in the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, and I came across the photograph, and that was my post. I think last night, and that was purchased by the curator then. The curator actually of furniture at the Museum of Fine Arts, a man named Jonathan Fairbanks, who's a big dog in the furniture world, very knowledgeable and highly respected, and he purchased that piece for the museum. So you know that's particularly cool when something like that happens. So there are a few of those instances that I do remember, and you know others. I mean, some pieces gone to museums and I was not even aware of it. You know, they're donated by a patron or something. So there are various ways they get in there. And
Sure.
I had a gallery in Atlanta that was very active in promoting my work to museums.
It's good. It's good to have people who are interested and become advocates of your work.
Yeah, well, they're damn hard to come by, and they're very few. And unfortunately, she passed away, and there's no replacement for somebody like that for me. You know.
Yeah, I hear you there. Tell us a little bit about your tooling. Not only are you, you know, world-renowned wood turner, but you make the finest tools for some of the finest tools for hollowing. What got you into that? And tell us a little bit about that enterprise.
Well, it's pretty simple. When you know, I've always been a teacher from the very beginning. I was accomplished enough, I guess, that I started doing weekend classes at a Appalachian Center for Craft here in Middle Tennessee, and but the short version is I didn't have the tools I needed for students, and we would modify. I use the Stewart tools, and my tools are kind of loosely based on his because he quit making what well, it's a long story, but the short version is I couldn't get the tools that I wanted for my students in the classes. And, you know, we would modify and try to make things, and there just weren't a lot of tools. And so I kind of reluctantly, I didn't particularly want to be a tool maker. I did when I was in high school. I had I had a lot of hours of machine shop. I went to a trade school, and that's what they had, you know, auto mechanics or machine shop. And so, and like, again, being a motorcycle guy and a maker of things, I took machine shop. So I had the, you know, the basic skills, but I couldn't get anybody else to do it.
Necessity.
Which would have made me happy if I could have gotten somebody else to make what I wanted. I would have never done it, you know.
Right.
And so just one thing led to another, and it's been, you know, so we've been at it a long time now. I'm a one-man show. I make I do everything from raw steel, to the finished product, and so it's been good for us. So.
How much of your time at this point is spent wood turning and compared to tool making? Do you have like a ratio of your time spent at this point?
I don't know about a ratio, but I would say that more time tool making than turning and carving and making pieces. But having said that, I don't make a lot of work these days. I mean, I don't know. We may touch on the whys of that in a minute, but so I do a little work and I do more tool work. Of course, I don't work 60 hours a week anymore, and and I had some health problems the last couple of years, and
right.
And so I'm better now. I'm actually doing very well.
Good.
And back working in the shop a lot. But lately I've been trying to get ahead on my tools a little bit. And but working on a couple of pieces, not a lot. But I don't have any shows or anything scheduled, which is really the motivation for me to turn. I don't really turn for fun like a lot. Probably a lot of the folks that are listening to us here. It's not my hobby. It's what I do. And so I come down here in the evening and make a bowl just for fun. I enjoy doing it. I mean, that's what I do. But
yeah, but it's also a livelihood.
Well, I'll say this. Tool making has enabled us to, have a decent life here the last, decade, rather than turn as turning things have changed.
Sure.
I certainly sell more tools than work. I'll put it that way. Yeah.
I've got two questions, and I'm going to start with the first, and I'll move to the second right after. How has the world of wood turning evolved over the years? You've been part of it clearly for decades. As you kind of sit back and you think about the landscape of wood turning, are there a couple changes within the wood turning journey that you can note that have kind of been impactful?
Well, clearly the AAW without that first conference at Airmont, which was based around the show they did, Vision and Concepts. They had a conference in conjunction with that, in a small group of people one night, sitting on the porch, drinking beer, said, well, we should start an organization, and clearly AAW, has been a huge part of what I do. I've been very involved with it all along. And so we certainly wouldn't be where we are without that. Wood turning, in the more artistic sense, is in many ways, or at least it was for a long time, a very separate thing. Those of us that made, higher end work, for lack of a better word, AAW had very little to do with that. We like to go because that's a way we could visit with our peers and stuff. But it really had little to do with promoting or selling the kind of work we were making. That was due to the galleries.
Got you.
The galleries primarily, and shows, but places like Del Monte, Ray Lear Del Monte Gallery, and my gallery in Atlanta called Connell Gallery, and places like that. Gallery Materia out in Arizona, and places like that, and there were collectors that bought our stuff, and so like I said, that was almost a separate world from the AAW.
Got you.
And that, to a large degree, has kind of faded away, and AAW's gotten more artistic now. They didn't always like some of the things that some of us did in the early days, or it wasn't very popular with the membership. We'll put it that way.
It finally caught up.
Yeah, but having said that, the people that were instrumental in the AAW and the officers and board members and stuff initially were artistic wood turners.
Sure.
They were kind of doing it, but kind of sponsoring it, or that's not the right word, but kind of running it, toward the amateur or hobby or beginning wood turners. You know, and it's still true to some extent. But you know, Dave Ellsworth clearly was first president, and
That's right.
and, you know, just a lot of those people you would know were board members. I was never interested in being a board member, and I've been on a lot of their committees and do a lot of things. I'm on the board of advisors, but I'm not mentally or emotionally capable of being on a nonsensical board.
That's not where you're at.
No.
Yeah.
John don't do that.
You know what?
I'm a lifter and toter. I'm glad to help. Point me in a direction. I'm glad to do this. But I can't sit through nonsense, you know, which is what boards
what it feels
are
like
at the time, even the very best ones. And I respect them greatly and appreciate what they've all done. But
it takes all types, and that's
it does, yeah. And I'm not real smart, but I was smart enough to realize that pretty early on. I was the president of our local craft association here once, and I was the worst one they ever had.
I'm sure that wasn't the case, but you know what? To know ourselves and what drives us, that's what's crucial. And what I think I heard you just say is, you know where your passions lie, and that's not it. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Yep. I'm going to take us back to the second question I had, and then I'm going to start kind of looking to the future a little bit. John, you mentioned that over the last decade, really your tooling has been a source of financial stability for your family, but it's also really allowed many wood turners to advance their work as hollowers and hollow form makers. If you could imagine or think about how many tools you've made over time, how does that feel to have that type of impact on the wood turning world?
Well, it's fun. You know, if you think, I mean, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about things like that, but you know, it's helped a lot of people. And as I said, when I started, you know, there were a couple or three people that really did any hollow turning, you know.
Right.
And you know, now, I mean, everybody hollow turns, you know, good heavens. There's, you know, tens or hundreds of thousands of people that do hollow, and having good tools available, you know, enables people to do that. So I think that's neat. And I don't know if you're going to ask me this, but I would just like to put in there by enabling people to do that is what I've done when, you know, teaching. That's, I don't know if you're planning on touching on that or not, but you know, more than anything, is part of my turning life has been, you know, as a teacher. And I don't know if there's anybody around that's probably had as many students or you know, attendees. That's not always students, but for demos and stuff, I doubt if anybody's been in front of as many people as I have over the years. You know, I travel. You know, until COVID last year, you know, I'm gone half the year, and traveling and teaching, and you know, I'll take a trip to California or somewhere and do 20 or 25 workshops, you know, every year, and all the symposiums, and you know, hundreds of them, and things like that, and club appearances, and schools and colleges, and all the craft schools, and it's certainly a it's a life that kind of takes you in a lot of different directions. So there's the wood turning part, there's the tool making part, and then there's the educator in you. How do those three elements of your life, how do they play into each other, specifically around your teaching? How does that feed your passion? Well, it's just all one big thing, Harry. You know, my whole life is everything I do. It's just all one big lump to me. And you know, when I'm traveling and teaching, well, I'm also, you know, I sell some tools, and you know, and occasionally I might do something. You know, I might have a gallery visit or a show or something involved on the same trip or something. So it's just all one big thing. I don't view them really separate. It's just all the. It's kind of like it ends up on my taxes. It's all just one big thing, you know.
They weave together.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, it's
Yep.
you know, we spent this much and we got this much, and here's how much I owe. You know, they don't differentiate, and at the IRS, and neither do I. You know.
If the Uncle Sam doesn't worry about it, you don't either.
Well, I come down to I've been trying the last few weeks to do. I said, well, I'm making handles right now. And I said, well, I'm just going to, when I walk in, I'm going to make 10 handles instead of this being a boring, long several days of doing the same thing over and over. I'm going to make 10. I'm just going to do 10 every morning.
You're going to knock it out
and pile them up. Yeah. Well, that way, you know, hadn't spent much time, and I got 10 more. So, and eventually, when I get a bunch of tools made, then I take them and have them oxided, which is the only thing I don't do. So I'm trying to do it that way, so I don't get bored with making some of the stuff's not real exciting, you know. Yeah.
You almost have to do that just so that you don't start pulling your hair out from the tedium of it, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's like production turning. You know, a lot of people like that they're suited for it. They like that rhythm and the way things pile up, you know, and a lot of people really suited for it. That's not really my thing, and so yeah, I start getting bored with anything if it's too repetitive, like a lot of people, you know.
Sure.
So some of us do this, some of us do that. So
that makes sense. So John, I'm going to take you to your website probably, but let me ask you this. If someone was interested in your work or your tools or an education, like a one-on-one or a group education, how would they access that? How would they reach you?
Well, here on Instagram, it's at John Jordan Woodturning. There's a link there to my website, but it's easy. You can just type my name in Google and Woodturning, you'll find it. But johnjordanwoodturning.com is the website.
Gotcha.
There's pictures of my work. I don't actually sell directly on the website, but I you know, there's lots of pictures, and people will express an interest and get in touch with me. That's something I should do better, but I never really seem to I don't have enough work to really support a web page, and trying to keep up with that is just, it's difficult. That's one of the things, you know, that I've not adapted to very well. I should do better. But as we've lost the galleries and stuff, I haven't really adapted as well as I could, and I don't use the internet the way that I probably should. But,
well, you've adapted to Instagram. Let me ask you a little bit about Instagram, and then I'll probably start moving towards your life and that type of thing in general. But how has Instagram played into your life as a wood turner, like connecting with the community? Anything different around how social media has enabled you?
Well, my friend at Scott's Mini Wood Shop, if you're on Instagram, I bet most of the people watching probably follow Scott.
Probably.
Scott picked me up to deliver me to the Mid-Atlantic Symposium a few years ago, and went on and on about Instagram. And I think I was even looking at his phone on the drive up to the symposium, and said, you need to do this. You ought to do this. And of course, I didn't realize what an Instagram god he was, you know. So it took me a year or so, but one day I sat down and started an account. And so I've posted regularly ever since I started. I do 2 or 3 posts a week, and then I follow most of the turners, you know, or try to, and I comment here and there. So I'm moderately active in Instagram, but I don't Facebook, and we have a good website, but Vicki does all that. She's responsible for that. we do sell the tools and stuff through that. So we have a good website, but I don't sell work that way. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up Vicky. You know, in my interaction with you, you know, we talk, but then when I connect on to buy tools or something like that, I know sometimes the emails come from your wife. How have you both partnered to make this venture work throughout the course of your life?
Well, it you know, early on, she'd always been pretty supportive. It was a little scary when we had you know, a baby, and I took a, you know, 600% cut in pay.
Right.
You know, but as the business, she takes care of all of the stuff that I have low tolerance for, the paperwork and taxes and all that kind of stuff. I couldn't do without her. You know, we wouldn't be able to do this. And like I said, the website and all of that, I'd be lost if I had to do all that. I don't know how, you know, and so it's certainly been a partnership. I couldn't do it without her. She doesn't work on pieces. She never has, and but she'll do anything that I ask, and she sometimes helps with the tools. She'll come down and put screws in them and wipe them off when we get them back from the oxide company. They have to be wiped down and put away and things. So she does a lot of stuff like that for me. But the nice things is if I go off to do a demo or something, she'll tidy up the shop for me and sweep the floors and wipe the counters off. I'm relatively neat in the shop. I'm pretty organized, but I don't. Maybe sweep and stuff like that, and Vicky will come down, and she doesn't come down there every day and clean my shop. That's not what I'm saying, but she'll give it a nice cleaning, or if I've got a remote demo, she'll come down and she'll give the shop a sweeping, and she wipes everything down, and is glad to do it, and I appreciate it for that. But she doesn't do the day-to-day cleaning for me, but like I said, it means a lot to me, and again, I couldn't do all this stuff without her.
The beauty of partnership, no doubt about that. You know, when I think about that, we are best when we have others that are supportive around us and we're supportive back.
No doubt.
Let's pull back a little bit to your life. You referenced some health challenges that you had, you know, lately, and you know, talk as deep about that as you want. Don't feel like you have to go there, but as you look at the future, what's on the horizon for John Jordan? Can you share?
Well, the health challenges, I always like to get a plug in for this, but I had several bouts of liver cancer, and while it didn't make me always sick, the treatment that I went through for some of this stuff did make me pretty sick. So, you know, I had 2-3 years there where I was not at my best, and then my friend, my good friend Clay Foster, well, I said one of my best friends, but at the same time had liver disease, and he was quite sick, and we were really worried about him. He was not doing well, and a little over a year ago, he got a transplant, and I was just thrilled that because he was really not doing well.
He needed it.
And yeah, he needed it. And like I said, I was going through, my cancer had returned, and they just go, and it previously had done little things and it may go away. And so I wasn't really real sick.
Right.
But they were worried that it would, you know, it would spread, and it was the third recurrence of it. And anyway, the short version is 2 weeks after Clay had a transplant, I got a call, and they gave me 3 minutes to decide that I was not expecting.
Not much deliberation there.
No, well, I was on the transplant list, but I was nowhere near the top of the list, and never expected a call. And without getting into the circumstances, I did get the call, and so I had a transplant 2 weeks after Clay. And so I would just say, be an organ donor. check that thing on your driver's license, talk to your family. And while I'm not sure where Clay's donor came from, the donor liver that I have was from somebody as old as I am. Mm-hmm. And so you don't necessarily have to be a young person to do it. So, look into it. It's easy to find out about it. That's all I'll say. But you might save an old wood turner, or better yet, a young wood turner. So, yeah.
I'm glad. Thanks for sharing that, John. I think it's really important for folks to consider that. Oftentimes people live their lives and that's not a strong consideration until maybe until the end. And it's better to think those things through early, because you're right. You could help somebody.
Well, I've met a number of wood turners who have got kidney transplant, heart transplant, and a number of guys that are my friends that I found out about. But somebody told me one day that they wrote me after I said this on one of my things and said I've signed up, and so maybe do some good. Anyway, as far as the future for me, you ask about that. I don't know. Like I said, I'm healthy and I feel good, and I'm working more than I have in a long time, and I do a little of this, a little of that. I'm working on some pieces. I've got a freezer full of some spectacular wood. I've got that piece of rosewood you sent me a long time, just waiting, But
just waiting.
I like. I don't know. It's hard to be motivated sometimes without kind of an end thing. Like I said, turning just for the sake of turning. My pieces take so much work that I don't know. It's hard to be as motivated as I need to be sometimes. But I keep thinking, we don't. I need an exhibition or something.
Yeah, like an end goal in mind. I think I hear you saying. Touch on that for a second. From start to finish, how long might it take for a piece of yours to move from a block of wood or a log to finished creation?
Well, I guess the short version is once I have whatever piece of wood I'm going to use, sawn to whatever. Once I turn it. Let's say a fairly major piece might be 3 hours, 4 hours turning. Yeah. I'm never in a huge hurry. I don't blast away at it, but I'm pretty good at it. So, 3 hours, 4 hours. And I spend as much time and I spend a lot of time on things because, again, I'm not a production turner. And
right.
So I really want them to be, I look at the shape and I think about it, and I'll take I was going to say I'll take a drink. I don't take a drink. I'll stop and look, or, get some water or have some coffee or something and look at it, because sometimes you look at something or you work at something so much that, it's like proofreading. If you try to proofread something you've just written, you read what you think you wrote.
It needs time to breathe a little bit.
That's
so you
right.
pull back.
So some days it's just there and I'm done, and other days, so you want to be objective and take a break and look at it. Yeah. So I'm never in a big hurry, but a few hours it takes to turn a, like I said, a relatively major piece. Say a 10-inch diameter piece, but then it dries for however long it dries. If I was in a hurry, it would be dry in a week or 10 days. It's plenty dry to start. I can't do the heavy carving until the piece is relatively dry, because it could crack. If I've done deep carving, it could crack along that carving. So I have to let it dry, but a minimum of, say, a week or 10 days. But it might be a year before I come back to it.
Sure.
But the time carving then on most pieces is probably 5 times what the turning was. So I'll spend if it's a major piece, I'll spend the best part of a week on it. And I don't work on just one piece typically. When I'm in a good rhythm and when I'm really working and got a lot of stuff going on, I generally have several pieces working. So I might do the rough carving on this one, and then I'll pick up the other one that's a little farther along, and I'll do a little rasping or carving with a gouge on that one, and then I may have one that's down to the final detailing. And as I tell people that once a piece looks like it's just about done, you're probably halfway there. You know.
Yeah, isn't that how it works?
And what I would say, you know, to people that want to do this stuff is that's where most people fall short. When I see their work is they don't do that last 50%.
The detail work.
They want the detail work. It's over and over and over again. You go over it again and again and again and again. So, and that's what makes a difference. And when you see work, you know, when you go to a gallery or the instant gallery at AAW or online or wherever you see work that kind of excites you, if you look at it, that's what you're going to see most of the time.
Yeah,
is that person that's paid attention to the detail. And when I say detail, I don't mean necessarily fine little marks or, you know, this or that, but detail appropriate to the kind of work they make, you know.
Yeah.
And the attention paid to things like that.
Yeah. No doubt about that. Speaking of that, and I'm looking at the clock at this point because we only have a few more minutes. John, if you could give advice to a new woodturner and then advice to someone who's a little bit further along, what would that advice sound like?
Probably the same.
Uh-huh.
Well, and for the beginner, beyond the actual how to sharpen your gouge and how to hold the gouge, and so we'll kind of assume that the best advice is you need to pick something and stick with it. You know, good repetition of what you're doing, and I usually suggest green bowl turning. You can rough turn green bowls is a great way to do it, but you need to stick with one thing. And of course, the thing about new wood turners, they get so excited. They want to try this, they want to try that. They want to make pins and vases and goblets and, you know, chair legs, and they want to do it. And you really can't. You need to stick with something. It's like learning to play guitar or you know, I collect some guitars. I wouldn't call myself a guitar player, but any good guitar teacher, you have to practice with intent the same things over and over. Well, that's how you become a wood turner, is you do the same things, you know, find something that interests you. And the same thing for guys that are getting pretty good, that have got the basic skills and they're kind of getting somewhere. The advice is kind of the same. Pick something that interests you. You know, people say, well, how do I make work mine? You know, how do I do something original instead of beating, you know, making your head hurt trying to be original and think up all these great things? Find something that interests you.
Yep.
And pursue that, even if it's, you know, you're sort of emulating somebody else. That's fine. And if you do it and you do it, one day your work is yours. You're no longer really emulating somebody else, you know.
Yeah.
But you have to do it. You have to. You can't. Like the guitar player, if you noodle around, and that's what I do with a guitar. I sit and I noodle. Well, you're learning to noodle. By noodling, that means you just a little of this. You play that song you learned in high school, and then you play these chords, and then you do this, and you play that one song, and then you put the guitar away. Well, you haven't done anything. You haven't accomplished a thing, you know, but you've gotten better at sitting there doing that. And that's what wood turners happens to some wood turners, is they get good at just doing this and that and the other and never really get focused, you know, and have intent with what they're doing. So, yeah.
You know what? I think that's great advice. Focus on one thing to allow you to really hone your craft. Be intentional about your work.
Yeah.
Can you touch a little bit on the importance of failure as you're working through going from beginner to, you know, someone who's quite good, how important does failure play in?
Well, it's very important. Of course, I'm you know, again, I'm a fairly skillful turner. So as far as things breaking and cutting through them and that kind of thing, I never had a lot of trouble with that. But more often the pieces, I didn't like it for one reason or another. You know,
Sure.
so it's an important way to do it. What I would say about failures is probably the best advice I could give is to quit screwing around with the things that don't work. Learn from the value is in the learning of the things that fail. And so people spend so much time trying to fix something that went wrong. It's a huge time suck, you know, and it's just a waste of time. If something can't be what it was what it could have been, then I've lost interest. At that point,
Move on.
You know, this thing had the potential to be this, and I screwed up, or it wasn't quite as good as I thought it was, or something, then I'm not interested in that anymore. And so
Get better next time.
Yeah, and so half-assing that now, you know, and spending that much more time on it to be something that you know, it's a waste of time, you know. Yeah. So put your energy into the good thing.
That's right.
Yeah. And sometimes that means, as I said to somebody the other night, everything doesn't deserve to live, you know.
Yeah, I think I saw that comment.
Steve Laura and I used to at Airmont, we'd do a 2-week class, and we would burn things in the driveway, and I could tell you stories, but we don't have time. But it was good fun.
A good fireplace or a fire pit is important, no doubt about it. This is gonna be the last question, John, and I'm gonna ask you to kind of send us off with a little bit, but as you kind of think about general encouragement for the wood turning community in general, what would you urge the wood turning community to do as we start marching forward beyond today or beyond this era? Any thoughts?
Oh, I don't know. That's putting a lot on me. But
yeah,
I would say, well, most of all, like I said, you hear me with some pretty strong opinions about you should do this or that. You don't need to do what I think you should do or what Perry thinks you should do, or anybody. You should have a good time. You know, most of the people that are listening, I suspect, are doing, you know, are wood turning mostly for fun. So, you know, make it fun. It should be fun. Don't take yourself too seriously. Even if you do things like I do, and you're an artist and you're this and that, you know, don't take yourself too seriously. It's just wood turning, you know.
Enjoy the process, learn from the journey, and continue to grow.
A lot of good people you'll get to know if you let it. That's probably the best thing of all.
Amen to that.
It's been a good life for me.
No doubt. John, it's been a real pleasure talking with you today. I appreciate you. Thanks for your work, and also thanks for taking your time. Thank you so much.
All right. See you, everybody. Thanks for coming. Bye.
Thank you. Have a great one.
All right.